There was a time I believed teaching would be my forever path. I imagined myself growing old in the classroom, chalk on my fingers, students' voices filling the air, the familiar rhythm of lessons and exams. For years, I held on to that image like a promise. But one day, the promise began to feel heavy. It didn't happen with one dramatic moment. There was no shouting, no big argument, no sudden explosion. Instead, the feeling arrived slowly, like rain that starts with only one quiet drop on the window, then another, until everything is wet. I noticed it first on an ordinary weekday. I stood in front of my students, holding a pile of exercise books I had stayed up correcting until late at night. Some students were talking among themselves. One was pretending to listen while secretly scrolling on the phone. Another rested their head on the desk, completely uninterested. When I spoke, my own voice surprised me. It sounded tired, empty, like I was only acting, not living. During recess, I didn't join the teachers in the staff room. Instead, I sat alone in the classroom, staring at the colorful posters I had once pasted proudly on the wall. Believe in yourself. Learning never ends. Once those words inspired me. Now they felt distant, like memories from another life. The workload kept growing. Meetings, reports, deadlines, rules that seemed to matter more than the children sitting in front of me. I tried to keep smiling, but inside I was slowly shrinking. My family began to notice. "You look so worn out," my mother said softly. And like always, I answered, "I'm okay." But the truth was I wasn't. My energy was fading. My passion was fading. I woke up every morning feeling as if I was walking into a storm I couldn't escape. Then one evening, while washing dishes, a simple thought crossed my mind. What if I don't have to stay? I froze. Teachers are expected to sacrifice, to be patient, to keep pushing. We are told that walking away means failure. So I tried to ignore the thought. But once it appeared, it refused to disappear. It followed me to school, whispered to me while I worked, sat quietly beside me during meetings. What if leaving wasn't weakness? What if leaving was choosing myself? I didn't have answers yet. All I had was that tiny, frightening, comforting thought. And that night, for the first time in a long while, I slept peacefully. Not because everything was okay, but because somewhere inside me, a door had finally begun to open. After that first small thought appeared, life at school continued, but nothing felt the same anymore. It was as if a thin crack had formed inside me, and every day something new pushed against it. The days were full, but I felt strangely empty. One morning, there was a classroom observation. The principal walked in quietly with a clipboard in his hand, his expression serious and unreadable. I tried my best to teach with energy, activities, questions, group work, everything I knew. But real life rarely follows plans. 2 students started arguing. Another kept interrupting. Someone at the back laughed at everything I said. I felt myself forcing smiles, pretending I still had control. After class, I was called to the office. "You need to manage your class better," the principal said, flipping through his notes. "Students seem bored. Try to be more creative, more engaging, more. Always more." There was no mention of the late nights. No recognition of the effort. Just expectations layered on top of exhaustion. I nodded politely, because that is what teachers are trained to do. But inside, something sagged. A few days later, a parent walked in, angry and loud. "My child used to do well. Ever since your class, everything dropped." I explained gently about missing work, distractions, late assignments. She didn't want explanations. She wanted someone to blame, and I became the easiest target. Before she left, she said one last sentence that lingered like smoke. "If you can't handle this job, maybe you shouldn't be a teacher." Her words hurt, not because they were cruel, but because they touched the truth I was already afraid to face. That evening, I sat alone in my room in silence. No music, no talking, just the quiet. I opened my laptop and stared at a blank document. My heart beat faster as the idea returned, clearer, stronger than before. Maybe I really can leave. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't type yet. I closed the laptop and pressed my hands to my face. Tears came, soft and unexpected. I wasn't crying because I was weak. I was crying because I was finally admitting how tired I truly was. And deep down, I began to understand. Sometimes the breaking point isn't one big dramatic moment. Sometimes it's just the slow realization that staying is hurting more than leaving ever could. The night I finally sat down to write my resignation letter, the room felt unusually quiet. Even the clock on the wall seemed softer, as if it didn't want to disturb me. A blank page stared back at me. Just a few sentences, that was all it would take. A simple letter. But my hands trembled because those sentences would change everything. I took a deep breath and began. Dear Sir, with this letter I wish to formally resign. The words looked strange, unreal, as if they belonged to someone else. I paused, erased, rewrote, then paused again. I didn't want the letter to sound angry or disrespectful. I didn't want to blame anyone. I just wanted the truth, spoken gently. As I typed, memories filled my mind. The shy student who used to avoid eye contact but slowly began to raise her hand. The boy who stayed after class just to talk about his worries at home. The class that once surprised me with a birthday song and homemade card. For a moment, doubt washed over me. Am I making a mistake? Am I abandoning them? But another memory appeared. Nights with barely any sleep. Mornings waking up with dread, the constant tension in my chest. I realized I had been carrying pain quietly for far too long. So I continued writing. I thanked the school. I explained briefly that I needed to step away for personal reasons. I ended with appreciation, because despite everything, there had been good moments, and I wanted to honor them. When I finally finished, I reread the letter slowly. It was short, respectful, final. I printed it and folded it carefully. Holding the paper in my hands felt unreal, as if I were holding both fear and relief at the same time. From that day on, the letter followed me everywhere. It stayed inside my bag like a secret. Every time my fingers brushed against it, my heart raced. Some mornings I told myself, today I'll hand it in. But when I reached the office door, I hesitated. What will people say? What if they think I failed? What if there's nothing better waiting for me? Then sometimes a softer voice answered, what if this is the beginning of healing? One afternoon, after class, a student lingered at the doorway and looked at me carefully. Teacher, you look tired. Please take care of yourself. Her words pierced my heart, not because they hurt, but because they felt true. I smiled and said I will. But as she left, I touched my bag, feeling the folded letter inside. And I knew deep inside, the decision was almost ready. The morning I decided to submit the letter, everything felt strangely calm. The sky was clear, the air quiet, as if the world knew something important was about to happen. I slipped the envelope into my bag and walked to school with a steady but nervous heartbeat. Every step felt heavier than usual. I kept asking myself, am I really doing this? When I reached the office, I stood at the doorway for a moment, breathing slowly. Then I walked in. The principal looked up from his desk. Yes? I swallowed, reached into my bag, and placed the envelope in front of him. This is my resignation. He paused, then opened the letter. His eyes scanned the page. There was no anger on his face, no shock, only quiet acceptance. When will your last day be? He asked calmly. End of the term, I replied. He nodded, typed something into his computer, and said, all right, thank you for informing us. We'll proceed with the process. That was it. No speeches. No dramatic reaction. Just paperwork, as if a chapter of my life could be reduced to a simple form. I walked out of the office feeling both lighter and strangely hollow. It was real now. There was no turning back. Word spread slowly among the teachers. Some came to me with supportive smiles. You're brave. I'm happy for you. Some whispered quietly, unsure what to say. Are you sure? Maybe you should think again. Others simply looked surprised. But standing there listening to all those voices, I realized something important. Their opinions didn't decide my future anymore. Later that day, I went back to my classroom. I taught like normal, answered questions, laughed with my students, but everything felt different. Every moment felt precious, like the last pages of a book I loved. After school, When everyone had gone home, I stayed behind. I walked between the desks slowly. I touched the smooth surface of the table where I always placed my books. I looked at the faded decorations, the marks on the walls, the memories tucked into every corner. For years, this room had been my world. Now I was saying goodbye. I sat down one last time at my desk and let the silence surround me. Fear still lived inside me, yes. Fear of the unknown, of starting over, of explaining my choice again and again. But beside the fear, something new stood quietly. Hope? Not loud, not dramatic, just gentle, like the first light before sunrise. And I realized, leaving didn't mean I was weak. It meant I was finally choosing to listen to myself. The first morning after my resignation officially took effect, I woke up before my alarm, out of habit more than anything. Then it hit me. I didn't have to rush anywhere. No bells, no lesson plans, no stack of ungraded papers waiting to stare at me. For a while, the quiet felt strange. Peaceful, yes, but unfamiliar. I realized how much I had forgotten what it was like to simply exist without obligation pressing on me from every angle. People often imagine quitting a job as instant freedom, but it wasn't like that. There was grief. Real, heavy grief. I missed the students more than I expected. I missed the laughter, the small moments of connection, the glimmers of progress that made all the effort worth it. But I also began to rediscover myself. I started taking evening walks just for me. I read books that had nothing to do with teaching. I drank coffee slowly, instead of gulping it between classes. I thought about what I really wanted, not what I thought I should want. I enrolled in an online course, explored new work opportunities, and even started writing. Not lesson plans, but my own words. Some days were uncertain and frightening. I doubted myself constantly. But other days, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. And slowly, I understood something crucial. Leaving didn't mean I had failed. It meant I had chosen myself. Teaching had shaped me. It had taught patience, empathy, resilience, and strength. Those lessons would stay with me forever. I would carry them into the next chapter of my life, whatever it might be. Perhaps someday, I'd return to teaching in a different way, on my own terms, helping in ways that felt right for me. But for now, I needed to breathe. Sometimes I walk past the school and hear the faint echoes of classrooms, the murmur of students, the rhythm of the day I once knew so well. I smile, not with longing but with gratitude, because leaving didn't erase who I was. It simply allowed me to become who I was meant to be, and that finally feels like freedom.